Welcome to today's lesson on professional English vocabulary. Communicating effectively in a professional setting can be challenging even in your native language, so it's completely normal to feel uncertain when doing it in English. But here's the good news. With the right vocabulary and practice, you can express yourself with confidence in any work situation. In this lesson, we're going to focus on building your professional vocabulary, exploring powerful expressions for different workplace scenarios, and developing communication strategies that will make you sound more polished and competent. I'll also share some cultural insights about communication norms in English-speaking workplaces. By the end of this session, you'll have expanded your professional English vocabulary significantly. So, let's get started with building your career communication skills. Let's start by building a strong foundation of core professional vocabulary that you can use in various workplace situations. These terms will help you communicate more precisely and sound more competent in professional settings. When discussing work projects, using precise vocabulary helps demonstrate your expertise. Here are some essential terms with examples. Our first word is deadline. A deadline is the final date by which something must be completed, such as a project, task, or assignment. For example, the deadline for this project has been moved up to next Friday. In this example, the team must finish their work earlier than they originally planned. Next, we have deliverable. A deliverable is a specific product, document, or outcome that must be provided to complete a project phase or fulfill a contract. For example, our key deliverable for this phase is the market analysis report. Here, the report is the main thing the team needs to finish and give to others. Another important term is scope. The scope refers to the boundaries and specific elements included in a project, outlining what will and will not be done. For example, we need to carefully define the scope of this project to avoid feature creep. In this example, the team wants to be clear about what is included in the project so they don't accidentally add extra tasks. Let's talk about milestone. A milestone is a significant point or achievement in a project's timeline, marking progress toward completion. For example, we've reached our first milestone ahead of schedule. This means the team finished an important part of the project earlier than planned. Now, consider prioritize. To prioritize means to arrange items in order of importance or urgency, ensuring that the most critical tasks are addressed first. For example, let's prioritize these tasks based on both urgency and importance. In this example, the team will decide which tasks to do first by thinking about what is most important and what needs to be done soonest. Finally, we have allocate. To allocate means to distribute or assign resources such as time, money, or personnel for a specific purpose or task. For example, we need to allocate more resources to the marketing department for this initiative. Here, the company plans to give more support, like money or people, to the marketing team for a special project. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in abilities and skills. When talking about your capabilities or those of others, these terms can help you express yourself with precision. Our first word is proficient in. To be proficient in something means you are skilled and competent in that area. For example, I'm proficient in data analysis and visualization tools. This means the person is good at using these tools for their work. Next, we have well-versed in. If you are well-versed in a subject, it means you have comprehensive knowledge of it. For example, she's well-versed in international tax regulations. Here, she knows a lot about tax rules in different countries. Another important term is adept at. Being adept at something suggests you are naturally skilled at it. For example, he's particularly adept at resolving customer complaints. This means he is very good at helping customers with their problems. Let's talk about experienced with. When you are experienced with something, it highlights practical knowledge gained over time. For example, I'm experienced with managing remote teams across different time zones. This means the person has managed teams in different places before. Now, consider specialized in. If you are specialized in an area, it means you have focused expertise there. For example, our team specializes in optimizing supply chain operations. This means the team is especially good at making supply chains work better. Finally, we have competent in. To be competent in something means you have sufficient skill to perform effectively. For example, she's competent in multiple programming languages. This means she can use several programming languages well enough to do her job. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in business processes. Understanding these common business process terms will help you navigate workplace discussions. Our first word is streamline. To streamline means to make something more efficient by simplifying it. For example, we need to streamline our approval process to reduce delays. This means they want to make the process faster and easier. Next, we have implement. To implement means to put a plan or system into action. For example, we'll implement the new system next quarter. This means they will start using the new system soon. Another important term is optimize. To optimize means to make something as effective as possible. For example, let's optimize our inventory management to reduce costs. This means they want to manage their supplies in the best way to save money. Let's talk about facilitate. To facilitate means to make a process easier or help it happen more smoothly. For example, the new software will facilitate better communication between departments. This means the software will help people in different departments talk to each other more easily. Now, consider coordinate. To coordinate means to organize different elements to work effectively together. For example, my role is to coordinate between the design and development teams. This means the person helps the two teams work well together. Finally, we have monitor. To monitor means to track or observe something regularly. For example, we continuously monitor key performance indicators to ensure progress. This means they regularly check important numbers to see how things are going. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in communication strategies. These terms are useful when discussing how information is shared in a professional setting. Our first word is articulate. To articulate means to express ideas clearly and effectively so others can easily understand you. For example, she's very articulate when presenting complex information to clients. In this example, she explains difficult topics in a way that clients can follow easily. Next, we have convey. To convey means to communicate or transmit a message or feeling to someone else. For example, I want to convey our enthusiasm for this partnership. Here, the speaker wants to make sure the other person feels their excitement about working together. Another important term is elaborate on. To elaborate on something means to explain it in more detail, giving extra information or clarification. For example, could you elaborate on how this process works? In this example, the person is asking for a more detailed explanation. Let's talk about clarify. To clarify means to make something clearer or easier to understand, often by removing confusion. For example, let me clarify what our expectations are for this project. Here, the speaker wants to make sure everyone understands what is required. Now, consider brief. To brief means to give essential information in a concise way, usually before an event or meeting. For example, I'll brief the team on the new procedures tomorrow. In this example, the person will give the team a short summary of the new rules. Finally, we have summarize. To summarize means to give an overview of the main points, leaving out extra details. For example, to summarize our discussion, we'll focus on 3 key areas. Here, the speaker is repeating the most important parts of the conversation. Now let's explore powerful action verbs that can help you describe your accomplishments and responsibilities more effectively. Using these verbs will make your professional communication more dynamic and impressive. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in leadership. Our first word is spearhead. To spearhead means to lead or initiate a major project or initiative, taking responsibility for its success. For example, she spearheaded the company's expansion into Asian markets. In this example, she was the main leader who started and managed the company's move into new countries. Next, we have orchestrate. To orchestrate means to arrange or organize something complex with many moving parts, making sure everything works together smoothly. For example, he orchestrated a complete redesign of the customer service process. Here, he managed all the details and people involved in changing how customer service works. Another important term is mentor. To mentor means to guide and develop less experienced colleagues, helping them grow professionally. For example, I mentored 5 junior developers during their first year with the company. In this example, the person gave advice and support to new team members. Let's talk about delegate. To delegate means to assign responsibilities effectively, giving tasks to others so work is shared. For example, to improve efficiency, I delegated specialized tasks to team members with relevant expertise. Here, the person gave certain jobs to people who were best suited for them. Now, consider champion. To champion means to advocate strongly for something you believe in, supporting it publicly. For example, our department championed the adoption of the new technology across the organization. In this example, the department encouraged others to use the new technology. Finally, we have oversee. To oversee means to supervise or manage a process from start to finish, making sure everything is done correctly. For example, she oversaw the entire product development life cycle. Here, she was responsible for every stage of creating the product. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in innovation and problem solving. Our first word is pioneer. To pioneer means to develop something new or be the first to use a particular method, opening the way for others. For example, our team pioneered a new approach to customer data analysis. In this example, the team created a new way to study customer information. Next, we have devise. To devise means to create or invent something innovative, especially a plan or solution. For example, I devised a strategy that reduced customer acquisition costs by 30%. Here, the person thought of a new plan that saved the company money. Another important term is transform. To transform means to change something dramatically for the better, making it very different from before. For example, the new management system transformed how we handle inventory. In this example, the way inventory was managed became much more effective. Let's talk about resolve. To resolve means to fix or settle a problem permanently so it does not happen again. For example, we resolved the long-standing compatibility issues between our software systems. Here, the team found a solution to a problem that had lasted a long time. Now, consider identify. To identify means to find or recognize something important that others might have missed. For example, the audit team identified several opportunities for cost reduction. In this example, the team discovered ways to save money. Finally, we have revamp. To revamp means to renovate or redo something substantially, making big improvements. For example, I completely revamped our onboarding process for new clients. Here, the person made major changes to help new clients get started more easily. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in improvement and efficiency. Our first word is streamline. To streamline means to make something more efficient by removing unnecessary steps or complexity. For example, we streamlined the reporting process, reducing completion time by 40%. In this example, the team made the process faster and easier. Next, we have enhance. To enhance means to improve or augment something that already exists, making it better. For example, the new features enhanced the user experience significantly. Here, the new features made it easier and more enjoyable for users. Another important term is boost. To boost means to increase or raise something measurably, such as sales or performance. For example, our marketing campaign boosted quarterly sales by 25%. This means the campaign helped the company sell more products. Let's talk about consolidate. To consolidate means to combine or unify different elements for greater effectiveness. For example, We consolidated our vendor relationships to improve purchasing power. Here, the company worked with fewer vendors to get better deals. Now consider accelerate. To accelerate means to speed up a process or timeline, making things happen faster. For example, the new approach accelerated our time to market by 6 weeks. In this example, the company was able to launch its products sooner. Finally, we have optimize. To optimize means to make something as perfect or effective as possible. For example, I optimized the website for both mobile users and search engines. Here, the person made the website work better for everyone and easier to find online. Now let's explore vocabulary and phrases for common professional communication scenarios. These expressions will help you navigate different workplace situations effectively. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in self-introduction. These phrases are useful when introducing yourself in professional settings. Our first word is background. A background refers to your education, training, and experience. For example, I have a background in digital marketing, specializing in social media campaigns. In this example, the person is explaining what they have studied and worked on in the past. Next, we have specialize in. To specialize in something highlights your area of expertise or focus. For example, I specialize in data analytics and visualization. Here, the person is saying they are especially skilled in analyzing and showing data. Another important phrase is extensive experience. Extensive experience emphasizes the depth of your knowledge in a particular area. For example, I have extensive experience managing cross-functional teams. This means the person has worked a lot with teams from different departments. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in professional interest. These expressions help you articulate why you're interested in specific projects or opportunities. Our first phrase is drawn to. To be drawn to something expresses a strong attraction to it. For example, I'm particularly drawn to your company's innovative approach to sustainability. Here, the person feels very interested in how the company creates new ways to help the environment. Next, we have aligns with. When something aligns with your skills or values, it indicates compatibility or harmony. For example, this project aligns perfectly with my experience in data visualization. In this example, the project matches what the person already knows how to do. Another important phrase is intrigued by. To be intrigued by something shows intellectual curiosity about it. For example, I'm intrigued by the challenges this role presents. Here, the person is interested in solving the problems that come with the job. Let's talk about resonates with. When something resonates with you, it suggests a deep personal connection. For example, your company's mission really resonates with my professional values. In this example, the person feels that the company's goals are similar to their own beliefs. Now, consider impressed by. To be impressed by something acknowledges excellence that you've observed. For example, I'm impressed by your team's recent work on the Henderson project. Here, the person thinks the team's work was very good. Finally, we have opportunity to. An opportunity to do something frames it as a chance for positive action or growth. For example, I see this as an opportunity to apply my analytical skills to real-world problems. In this example, the person wants to use their skills to help solve actual business issues. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in professional strengths. These terms help you describe your professional strengths effectively. Our first phrase is excel at. To excel at something indicates performing extremely well in that area. For example, I excel at finding creative solutions to complex problems. Here, the person is very good at thinking of new ways to solve difficult issues. Next, we have natural aptitude for. A natural aptitude for something suggests an inherent talent or ability. For example, I have a natural aptitude for analyzing data patterns. In this example, the person finds it easy to see trends in data. Another important phrase is proven ability to. A proven ability to do something emphasizes demonstrated capabilities. For example, I have a proven ability to lead teams through challenging transitions. Here, the person has shown they can help teams succeed during difficult changes. Let's talk about particularly effective at. Being particularly effective at something highlights areas where you show exceptional skill. For example, I'm particularly effective at mediating conflicts between departments. In this example, the person is very good at helping different groups work together peacefully. Now consider consistently deliver. To consistently deliver something emphasizes reliability and consistent performance. For example, I consistently deliver projects on time and under budget. Here, the person always finishes work when expected and without spending too much money. Finally, we have recognized for. To be recognized for something indicates acknowledgement from others about your skills. For example, I've been recognized for my attention to detail and thoroughness. In this example, other people have noticed and praised the person's careful work. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in growth and development. These expressions help you discuss professional challenges and development areas. Our first phrase is working to improve. Working to improve something shows self-awareness and initiative in addressing weaknesses. For example, I'm actively working to improve my public speaking skills. Here, the person is trying to get better at speaking in front of others. Next, we have developing my skills in. Developing my skills in a specific area indicates ongoing learning. For example, I'm currently developing my skills in advanced data visualization techniques. In this example, the person is learning new ways to show data clearly. Another important phrase is seeking opportunities to. Seeking opportunities to do something shows proactive pursuit of growth. For example, I'm seeking opportunities to gain more experience in project management. Here, the person is looking for chances to practice managing projects. Let's talk about committed to. Being committed to something expresses dedication to getting better. For example, I'm committed to continuous improvement in all aspects of my work. In this example, the person always tries to do their job better. Now, consider addressing my tendency to. Addressing my tendency to do something shows self-awareness about specific habits. For example, I'm addressing my tendency to take on too many tasks by improving my delegation skills. Here, the person is learning to share work with others instead of doing everything themselves. Finally, we have benefited from. To have benefited from something acknowledges how you've improved through support. For example, I've benefited from mentoring in this area, which has significantly improved my performance. In this example, the person got help from a mentor and now does their job better. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in problem-solving narratives. These terms help structure how you describe solving professional problems. Our first word is identify. To identify something refers to recognizing or discovering an issue. For example, I identified a significant inefficiency in our customer onboarding process. Here, the person noticed a problem that was slowing things down. Next, we have analyze. To analyze something involves examining details to gain insights. For example, I analyzed the data to understand the root causes of the problem. In this example, the person looked closely at information to find out why the problem happened. Another important word is develop. To develop something refers to creating a solution or approach. For example, I developed a 3-phase plan to address the issue. Here, the person made a step-by-step plan to fix the problem. Let's talk about implement. To implement something means putting a solution into action. For example, I implemented new procedures that streamlined the workflow. In this example, the person started using new rules to make work go more smoothly. Now, consider monitor. To monitor something involves tracking progress and outcomes. For example, I monitored the results closely for the first quarter after implementation. Here, the person checked how things were going after making changes. Finally, we have resulted in. When something resulted in a specific outcome, it connects your actions to positive results. For example, the changes resulted in a 30% increase in efficiency. In this example, the improvements made work much faster and better. Now let's explore vocabulary for discussing compensation and negotiating effectively in professional settings. These terms will help you navigate compensation discussions with confidence. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in compensation discussions. These terms are useful when discussing salary and benefits. Our first term is compensation package. A compensation package is the total offering including salary, benefits, bonuses, and other perks. For example, I'd like to understand the complete compensation package, not just the base salary. In this example, the person wants to know about all the rewards they will receive, not just their monthly pay. Next, we have market rate. The market rate is the typical salary range for similar positions in your industry and location. For example, based on my research, the market rate for this position in our area is between X and Y. Here, the person is saying what most companies pay for this kind of job. Another important word is benefits. Benefits are non-salary advantages provided as part of employment, such as health insurance or paid time off. For example, the benefits include health insurance, retirement contributions, and paid time off. In this example, the person is listing extra things the company gives besides salary. Let's talk about performance-based incentives. Performance-based incentives are additional payments tied to achieving specific goals. For example, the role includes performance-based incentives that could increase your total compensation by 15%. Here, the person can earn more money if they meet certain targets. Now, consider equity. Equity refers to ownership shares in a company, often offered to employees. For example, the startup is offering equity as part of the compensation package. In this example, the person could own a small part of the company. Finally, we have signing bonus. A signing bonus is a one-time payment made when you accept a position. For example, they offered a competitive salary with a signing bonus of X. Here, the person gets extra money just for joining the company. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in negotiation strategies. These phrases can help when negotiating compensation or terms. Our first phrase is flexible on. To be flexible on something indicates areas where you're willing to compromise. For example, I'm flexible on the start date, but the salary is a key consideration for me. In this example, the person can change their start date, but not their pay. Next, we have counteroffer. A counteroffer is a response proposal that changes the terms of an initial offer. For example, after considering your initial offer, I'd like to present a counteroffer of X. Here, the person is suggesting a different salary or condition than what was first offered. Another important phrase is open to discussion. Being open to discussion shows willingness to continue negotiations. For example, while the base salary is lower than expected, I'm open to discussion if there's flexibility in other areas. In this example, the person is ready to talk about other benefits or terms. Let's talk about non-negotiable. Non-negotiable refers to points on which you cannot compromise. For example, remote work 2 days per week is non-negotiable for me due to family commitments. Here, the person must have this condition and cannot change it. Now, consider meet in the middle. To meet in the middle suggests a compromise between two positions. For example, perhaps we could meet in the middle at X. In this example, both sides agree on a number between their two offers. Finally, we have deal breaker. A deal breaker is an issue that would cause you to reject an offer completely. For example, the extensive travel requirement would be a deal breaker for me. Here, the person would not accept the job if it requires too much travel. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in value proposition. These expressions help you articulate your value when negotiating. Our first phrase is bring to the table. To bring to the table means to offer skills, experience, or attributes. For example, the specialized experience I bring to the table justifies a higher compensation level. In this example, the person is saying their unique skills are worth more pay. Next, we have demonstrated success in. Demonstrated success in something highlights proven achievements relevant to the position. For example, my demonstrated success in reducing operational costs by 15% makes me uniquely qualified for this role. Here, the person is showing they have already achieved good results in the past. Another important phrase is industry expertise. Industry expertise emphasizes specialized knowledge in your field. For example, my 10 years of industry expertise would allow me to make immediate contributions. In this example, the person has a lot of experience in their area of work. Let's talk about quantifiable results. Quantifiable results refers to measurable achievements that show your impact. For example, I've consistently delivered quantifiable results, including a 30% increase in customer satisfaction. Here, the person can prove their work made a real difference. Now, consider unique perspective. A unique perspective highlights what differentiates you from others. For example, my experience in both marketing and sales gives me a unique perspective that few candidates offer. In this example, the person can see things in a special way because of their background. Finally, we have investment in. An investment in you frames your compensation as a business investment with returns. For example, I see this compensation not just as a salary, but as your investment in the value I'll create for the organization. Here, the person is saying the company will benefit from paying them well. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in alternative benefits. These terms describe non-salary benefits you might negotiate. Our first phrase is flexible working arrangements. Flexible working arrangements refers to adaptable work schedules or locations. For example, I'd like to discuss flexible working arrangements, including the option to work remotely 2 days per week. In this example, the person wants to have some control over where and when they work. Next, we have professional development. Professional development involves resources for improving your skills and knowledge. For example, I'm interested in professional development opportunities such as conference attendance or continuing education. Here, the person wants the company to help them learn new things. Another important phrase is performance review timeline. A performance review timeline refers to when your work will be evaluated. For example, I'd like to establish a 6-month performance review timeline with the possibility of a salary adjustment. In this example, the person wants to know when they will be reviewed and possibly get a raise. Let's talk about additional time off. Additional time off refers to vacation or personal days beyond the standard package. For example, if the salary is fixed, I'd like to discuss additional time off as an alternative benefit. Here, the person is asking for more days off instead of more money. Now, consider accelerated advancement. Accelerated advancement refers to faster than usual promotion possibilities. For example, I'm interested in opportunities for accelerated advancement based on performance. In this example, the person wants to move up in the company more quickly if they do well. Finally, we have relocation assistance. Relocation assistance refers to help with moving expenses or temporary housing. For example, since this position requires moving to a new city, I'd like to discuss relocation assistance. Here, the person wants the company to help pay for their move. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in gracious responses. These expressions help maintain positive relationships during negotiations. Our first word is appreciate. To appreciate something expresses gratitude while maintaining a professional tone. For example, I appreciate your offer and am excited about the possibility of joining your team. In this example, the person is thankful and positive about the job offer. Next, we have understand. To understand something acknowledges the other party's position without necessarily agreeing. For example, I understand the budget constraints you've mentioned. Here, the person is showing respect for the company's situation. Another important word is consider. To consider something indicates thoughtful evaluation rather than immediate rejection. For example, I'd like to take some time to consider this offer carefully. In this example, the person wants to think before making a decision. Let's talk about mutual benefit. A mutual benefit emphasizes creating value for both sides. For example, I'm looking for an arrangement that provides mutual benefit. Here, the person wants both themselves and the company to gain from the agreement. Now, consider look forward to. To look forward to something expresses optimism about a positive outcome. For example, I look forward to reaching an agreement that works for both of us. In this example, the person is hopeful about finding a good solution. Finally, we have fair and competitive. To seek something fair and competitive frames your request as reasonable rather than excessive. For example, I'm seeking compensation that's fair and competitive for someone with my qualifications. Here, the person is asking for pay that matches their skills and experience. Professional communication expectations can vary significantly across different English-speaking countries and cultures. Let me share some important cultural insights and vocabulary to help you navigate international professional settings. Let's first talk about professional communication in the United States. Here are some key cultural aspects to be aware of. Our first phrase is, self-promotion is expected. In the U.S., self-promotion is expected, meaning it's normal to talk about your accomplishments. For example, during my presentation, I'll highlight the 3 major achievements I led last quarter. In this example, the person is comfortable sharing their successes with others. Next, we have direct eye contact. Direct eye contact is important as it shows engagement and is considered a sign of trustworthiness. For example, make sure to maintain good eye contact during your interview to demonstrate confidence. Here, the person is showing they are paying attention and are confident. Another important phrase is, questions are encouraged. Questions are encouraged, meaning you should ask questions to show interest. For example, do you have any questions about the project timeline? In this example, asking questions is seen as a positive thing. Let's talk about punctuality. Punctuality is highly valued, so being on time is essential. For example, please arrive 10-15 minutes early for the client meeting. Here, the person is showing respect by being early. Finally, we have follow-up. Follow-up is expected, such as sending a thank you email after meetings. For example, I'll send a summary email by end of day. In this example, the person is keeping in touch and showing professionalism. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in United Kingdom business culture. Now let's look at the United Kingdom's professional communication norms. Our first phrase is more reserved tone. A more reserved tone is typical, meaning achievements are highlighted modestly. For example, I've had some experience with this type of project before. In this example, the person is being humble about their skills. Next, we have understatement. Understatement is valued, so success may be downplayed. For example, the project was quite successful actually. Here, the person is not bragging even if the project went very well. Another important phrase is, humor can be appropriate. Humor can be appropriate in business settings, even in professional situations. For example, I suppose I'll survive another Monday morning meeting. In this example, the person uses a light joke to connect with others. Let's talk about qualifications matter. Qualifications matter significantly, so be ready to discuss your educational background. For example, I completed my MSc in Computer Science at Imperial College. Here, the person is sharing their education to show their expertise. Finally, we have indirect questions. Indirect questions are common, meaning questions may be phrased less directly. For example, I wonder how you might handle a situation where team members disagree. In this example, the person is being polite and not too direct. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in Australian business culture. Let's explore some aspects of Australian business communication. Our first phrase is casual but professional. Casual but professional describes the tone, which is relaxed but still expects professionalism. For example, we're pretty relaxed here, but we still get the job done well. In this example, the person is saying you can be friendly, but you must also work hard. Next, we have tall poppy syndrome. Tall poppy syndrome refers to discomfort with boasting, so balance confidence with humility. For example, our team achieved great results, though it was definitely a group effort. Here, the person is sharing success, but also giving credit to the team. Another important phrase is, team fit is crucial. Team fit is crucial, meaning employers value how well you'll fit with the team. For example, how do you like to collaborate with colleagues? In this example, the person is interested in teamwork and cooperation. Let's talk about practical experience. Practical experience is valued over theoretical knowledge. For example, I've implemented similar systems at 3 different companies. Here, the person is showing they have real-world experience, not just classroom knowledge. Finally, we have directness. Directness is appreciated, so straightforward answers are preferred. For example, let's get straight to the point about the budget constraints. In this example, the person is being clear and honest. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in cross-cultural communication. These terms will help you discuss and navigate cultural differences in professional settings. Our first phrase is cultural awareness. Cultural awareness is recognizing and respecting cultural differences in communication and business practices. For example, developing cultural awareness is essential when working with international clients. In this example, the person is saying it's important to understand and respect other cultures. Next, we have high-context culture. A high-context culture is one where meaning is often conveyed through context, relationships, and nonverbal cues. For example, Japan is considered a high-context culture, where much communication is implicit. Here, the person is explaining that people in Japan may not say everything directly. Another important phrase is low-context culture. A low-context culture is one where communication is primarily explicit and verbal. For example, the United States is typically a low-context culture that values direct communication. In this example, the person is saying that Americans usually say exactly what they mean. Let's talk about cultural faux pas. A cultural faux pas is a socially awkward act or remark in a particular cultural context. For example, checking email during a meeting might be considered a cultural faux pas in some countries. Here, the person is warning that some actions may be rude in other cultures. Now, consider cultural adaptation. Cultural adaptation is the process of adjusting your communication style and behaviors to work effectively across different cultures. For example, cultural adaptation is a key skill for international business success. In this example, the person is saying you need to change how you act to fit in with other cultures. Finally, we have global etiquette. Global etiquette refers to the codes of behavior considered appropriate in professional settings across different cultures. For example, our team received training in global etiquette before the international conference. Here, the person is saying they learned how to behave properly in different countries. With the rise of remote work, virtual professional meetings have become increasingly common. Let me share essential vocabulary and phrases for effective virtual communication in professional settings. These terms will help you discuss the technical aspects of virtual meetings. Our first word is connectivity. Connectivity refers to your internet connection quality and stability. For example, I need to check my connectivity before the important client presentation. In this example, the person wants to make sure their internet is strong enough for the meeting. Next, we have bandwidth. Bandwidth is the capacity of your internet connection to transmit data. For example, you might want to close other applications to save bandwidth during the video call. Here, the person is suggesting ways to make the internet faster for the meeting. Another important word is troubleshoot. To troubleshoot means to systematically identify and fix technical problems. For example, let me troubleshoot my audio settings before we continue. In this example, the person is checking and fixing their sound issues. Let's talk about platform. A platform is the specific software used for virtual meetings. For example, which meeting platform will we be using? Zoom, Teams, or Google Meet? Here, the person is asking which software will be used for the call. Now, consider interface. An interface is the visual layout and controls of a program. For example, the new update has changed the user interface of our meeting software. In this example, the person is talking about how the program looks and works. Finally, we have backup plan. A backup plan is an alternative arrangement if the primary technology fails. For example, let's exchange phone numbers as a backup plan in case of technical difficulties. Here, the person wants to be prepared if the video call doesn't work. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in virtual environments. These terms help you discuss your virtual meeting setup. Our first word is background. A background is what appears behind you in your video feed. For example, I'll use a neutral background for the client meeting tomorrow. In this example, the person wants to look professional on camera. Next, we have lighting. Lighting refers to how well illuminated you are on camera. For example, good lighting is essential for appearing professional on video calls. Here, the person is saying that being well lit helps others see you clearly. Another important word is ambient noise. Ambient noise is background sounds that might be picked up by your microphone. For example, I apologize for the ambient noise, construction is happening nearby. In this example, the person is explaining why there are extra sounds during the call. Let's talk about frame. A frame is how you position yourself within the camera's view. For example, make sure you're properly framed in the camera before starting. Here, the person is reminding you to check how you appear on screen. Now, consider acoustics. Acoustics refers to how sound travels in your environment. For example, the acoustics in this room cause a slight echo during calls. In this example, the person is explaining why their voice might sound strange. Finally, we have ergonomic setup. An ergonomic setup is an arrangement that promotes comfort and efficiency. For example, an ergonomic setup is important for long virtual meetings. Here, the person is saying you should arrange your desk and chair to avoid discomfort. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in virtual meeting etiquette. These terms will help you navigate proper behavior in virtual professional settings. Our first phrase is mute, unmute. To mute or unmute means to turn your microphone on or off during a meeting. For example, please remember to mute yourself when not speaking to minimize background noise. In this example, the person is asking everyone to keep the meeting quiet. Next, we have video etiquette. Video etiquette refers to appropriate behavior when on camera. For example, proper video etiquette includes staying engaged and avoiding excessive movement. Here, the person is saying you should pay attention and not distract others. Another important phrase is screen sharing. Screen sharing is displaying your computer screen for others to see. For example, I'll now share my screen to walk through the presentation. In this example, the person is showing their slides or documents to everyone. Let's talk about chat function. A chat function is the text-based communication channel in meeting platforms. For example, feel free to use the chat function for questions during the presentation. Here, the person is inviting others to type questions instead of speaking. Now, consider turn-taking. Turn-taking is the process of alternating speaking opportunities. For example, virtual meetings require more deliberate turn-taking than in-person conversations. In this example, the person is saying people should wait their turn to speak. Finally, we have virtual hand-raising. Virtual hand-raising is using platform features to indicate you wish to speak. For example, please use the virtual hand-raising feature if you'd like to contribute. Here, the person is asking everyone to signal before talking. Next, we talk about vocabulary used in virtual presentations. These terms will help you deliver effective virtual presentations. Our first phrase is engagement techniques. Engagement techniques are methods to maintain viewer interest online. For example, we need to use more engagement techniques to keep the virtual audience's attention. In this example, the person wants to make sure people stay interested during the presentation. Next, we have visual aids. Visual aids are graphics, charts, or images that support your message. For example, clear visual aids are even more important in virtual presentations. Here, the person is saying that pictures and charts help people understand better online. Another important phrase is pacing. Pacing refers to the speed at which you move through content. For example, virtual presentations generally require slower pacing than in-person ones. In this example, the person is saying you should speak more slowly online so everyone can follow. Let's talk about vocal variety. Vocal variety refers to changes in tone, pitch, and speed while speaking. For example, use vocal variety to keep your virtual audience engaged. Here, the person is suggesting you change your voice to make the talk more interesting. Now, consider audience polling. Audience polling is asking participants to vote or respond to questions. For example, we'll use audience polling throughout the presentation to gather feedback. In this example, the person is using questions to involve the audience. Finally, we have breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are separate virtual spaces for smaller group conversations. For example, we'll use breakout rooms for small group discussions during the virtual workshop. Here, the person is dividing the meeting into smaller groups for discussion. Congratulations! You've now got a solid foundation of vocabulary, powerful expressions, and communication strategies to help you succeed in professional English-speaking environments. Remember that building your professional vocabulary is an ongoing process. Pay attention to the terms and phrases used by colleagues in business publications and during professional presentations. Add new words to your vocabulary regularly and practice using them in context. Most importantly, be confident in your communication. Even native speakers sometimes struggle with the right words, so don't be afraid to clarify or ask questions when needed. Professional environments value clear communication over perfect grammar. Good luck with your professional communication journey. With these vocabulary tools and continued practice, you'll be able to express yourself clearly and confidently in any workplace situation.